Peaceful co-parenting is nearly impossible, and here's why. So my name's Chris, and I've been co-parenting for years now, and I decided to make a channel here talking about some of my struggles with parenting and as a man in itself, right? So as a man, co-parenting in a peaceful manner is nearly impossible, and I want to break this down for you guys. And this isn't just geared towards men, but this channel mainly has a male audience, but that's what it is. But if you're a female, hit us up in the comments and let us know down below on how we can help, how we can make this better. What a lot of people don't understand in the co-parenting space is that the whole goal here is it's about the children. And I know this is going to be super vague, but it's about the children, and we're going to nail down to this. So the reasons why peaceful co-parenting is nearly impossible is for a handful of reasons. So first, there's expectations versus reality. So in our, and this is life in itself, right? All of us are trying to eat healthy. We're trying to be better people, and expectations, those are our expectations. They're up here, right? But what actually happens is reality. And things trigger us, like if you're feeling down, maybe you have depression, or maybe you're having a crappy day at your job. Essentially, expectations sometimes get the better hold of reality, or not expectations, but the reality gets a better hold of what your expectations are. Sorry, I'm trying to word this properly. So, it's inevitable, we're all trying to not be toxic. And I think as co-parenting, as we co-parent in this journey, it's tough not to be toxic, because a lot of us, we essentially left the relationship unhappy. We still have all this anger, unresolved anger with these people that we possibly, arguably kind of still love. There's a part of us, especially us that have been married for quite some time. And because you sort of always love a person, once you've been with them so long, you know them so very well, and it's hard to disconnect from that. Well, here's the thing: it's probably easier to entirely disconnect, everything. You know what I mean? It's easier to get someone out of your life when you entirely do that, when you block them, when you don't talk to them. Studies show that, right? But what co-parenting does is it forces us to have to work together and see each other every other day. It would be easier if I didn't have to see my ex-wife, and I wouldn't have to deal with this anger, and I feel like I could let go. But because of my daughter, we're almost in this business-like relationship of being in the business of raising a child, our daughter, And again, this kind of goes for any kids. I'm going to say my daughter, this is my one, I only have one child. And the next thing is communication struggles, right? This is why co-parenting is nearly impossible, is because of communication struggles. A lot of our relationships are purely based upon text messaging. There's a lot of context to be left out with that. Have you ever got into a fight with someone on Facebook Messenger, and it's just oh, well, the context was missing, And I think that plays a huge role in things, because my advice to you would be to don't be afraid to get on the phone and just call that person and talk to them and be like, hey, I'm sensing a fight starting, and maybe we could talk about this and there's no missing context with it. And I think it's really important because there's just so much loss there. So, and then the next reason is different parenting styles, right? This is huge. A lot of times this is what splits up the split to begin with and why you're co-parenting. A lot of times, I think specifically for me, my relationship with my ex-wife it was great, totally great up until we had a child, and our child was somewhat difficult. And not only that, all children are difficult. I don't want that to be taken wrongly, but you also factor in a whole new amount of struggles. And when you add struggles to the whole scenario of your life, I think the frustrations, the people that are next to you the most are the ones that are going to be receiving it, right? And when things, these different parenting styles are so crucial, and I think it's hard not to, how do you fix this? Because you don't really know a person's parenting styles until you're in the midst of it. So you have to ask yourself, how could I fix this? Because Maybe have a conversation on your parenting styles. Maybe if you haven't had kids yet, go and watch children, but that's like super unlikely because people that don't have kids don't go and hang out and watch kids, you know what I mean? But if anyone's watching this that is like doing research on that, that's crucial to try to be on the same page as the parenting styles. See, myself, I'm an extremely old-fashioned person with parenting, and I would like to live out in the woods, bring the kids with us. I even would like to go as far as maybe homeschooling the kids and getting them out in the country and playing with sticks and stones and dirt instead of iPads. And I do understand, the different parenting styles is just what really is such a big deal on why co-parenting is so difficult. And a lot of times we'll argue, I slipped up just the other day and I acted a tiny bit toxic, I don't even want to get into the details, but I didn't agree with the parenting style. And then I had a choice. Do I keep it to myself or do I jump on text message and go and blame the other parent? And I slipped up, man. I went and texted them and I was like, this is wrong. I feel like our parenting styles, we need to better align. She didn't reply to it, so I'm guessing, and I slipped up. That's on me. So, I mean, what kind of sucks with the co-parenting dynamic is that we essentially have to just parent on our time. And you're only in charge of 50% of the time, which is it's so like hard. You know what I mean? Because you put so much emphasis and so much control and effort into trying to control the narrative on how these kids are raised. Because it's a horrible time to raise kids with technology, like the broken government, everything. And it's like we're just trying to raise these kids good. And that is one of the biggest reasons why co-parenting is so difficult. And it's nearly impossible for men and women. And, I follow a lot of these influencers, not to go down like a wormhole or anything, but a lot of these influencers in this space, they speak toxic in a toxic manner. And I think they kind of miss the goal in co-parenting, which is to work as a team to essentially raise the best child we can. And it almost turns in, and you need to treat it as like a business transaction. But what happens is it's like this hierarchy of just like toxicness, like who can one up the other person and blah, 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 who has more money, who has more visitation. I spent $50,000 getting split custody. It's like, what? Like if you're fighting to have your child not have 50% custody of the other parent not have split custody, you're the problem. The goal is to have both parents, man. Like, not to get on a wormhole, but my next reason why co-parenting is so difficult is unresolved emotions. And I'm looking at my screen here because I have some notes, unresolved emotions. This goes back to the beginning when I was talking about having feelings that are unresolved, There's probably a big underlying reason why your guys' relationship just didn't work. And then sometimes when the relationship's falling apart, you do things that you deeply regret. And I have a laundry list of things that I regret, and it's horrible. And but every day I try to be a better person and move on from it. You know what I mean? And I think what us co-parents have to do, or us men, especially men, is to just try to see the bigger picture in this for the children. And I know it's difficult, man, but you have to stick to your guns. When you get the toxic text, when you're face to face with the other parent and they're heating up and you can just sense it, you need to learn to deflate all the crazy emotions and just think of your child. That's what I try to do, A couple months ago, me and my co-parent, we had an argument in front of our child, and I wanted to have a conversation, and it started to escalate to our voices being raised, and I was just like, this, we can't have this, and I was hoping to have a real conversation, but sometimes the emotions overtake like what the intent was, you know what I mean? So you both have to work together to see the larger picture. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, sort of say, but Um, and then we have external influences. This is the next one on why co-parenting is nearly impossible. External influences. We're talking parents, our parents, like with the grandparents. Well, I think you should do that. I think you should do that. Or maybe the co-parents have met new couples, like I met a new girlfriend and then my ex-wife has met a new man. And then there's external influences that kind of differ in parenting styles. This happens all the time. And it's nearly the hardest thing to navigate when somebody has, when somebody has a different influence or a style of parenting that's being brought into your child's life. And it's rocky, man. Those like step parents need to be so careful with like where they're treading, where they're walking, A lot of times once you get deeper into it, you still have to be so crucial as a step parent that you're not overstepping boundaries. And like, even though you're a step parent, you need to know your boundaries. Like even if you disagree with something, a lot of times you're just gonna have to eat your words. That's my advice to you guys. And rounding all this out, because that was like 7 reasons on why co-parenting is nearly impossible, and it's tough, man. This is a family-based page, and most of my audience is men because I feel like I'm a man and I talk our struggles. But the conclusion here is we need to have high hopes that we can get better every single day for the children. I know it seems like this like inevitable battle between you and your co-parent, but we need to see the light at the end of the tunnel and realize that it's not about us anymore. It's not about my feud. It's not about my feelings. It's not about us working again. Like, a lot of us, I ask myself, why is there so much emotion attached to the co-parents? And I think there's like so much unresolved emotions, even like love, and it's hard to let go of that, but you have to figure out a way to completely let go and be able to shake hands. I'm very grateful that like me and my co-parent, we go to everything together. We go to school events. It looks kind of funny sometimes because we have both of us, and then we also have our new partners. So we have 4 people there plus other kids. It's like a daycare, dude. And it's just I get along with my co-parents' new loved one, and that's key, man. Like just put into work. And even though I don't agree with some things here and there, it's not about me. Like see the bigger picture here, and especially for men, especially for women. Hit me up in the comments and let me know what your biggest struggles are in your co-parenting relationship, and do you find that it's going to be impossible to be successful with this? Because even though, it doesn't have to be perfect, it could just be a lot better or just a small amount of better every single day. And you can each work on it. And sometimes just talking face to face and just having a convo, be like, hey, let's make a truce, because me and my co-parent, we kind of did this. Let's make a truce that there's no more friction. And however if we're making friction, we need to like just put a halt to it. Just make amends with the person, your co-parent. I know it's hard, but just know that more time that goes by, it's going to be a lot easier to get there. If you're in like if it all happened 6 months ago and it's fresh, it feels like it's never going to go away, and that pain. But every day that goes by, and like it's going to get easier, and you start to realize it's less and less about you and your pain and more about the whole goal of having a child come out good. All right, guys, I got to quit rambling here. I treat this channel as like my therapy. I'm a full-time content creator in itself, and sometimes like this is such a big topic and close to my heart that I have to talk to people about it. And sometimes, talking to you guys is my therapy. So hit me up in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I know this is mainly for men, but if you're a woman and you also like this type of content, don't be afraid to subscribe. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.